Welcome to the second part. So, let's go on. Remember, we've talked about what are the general aspects. You must organize your time, you must organize your idea, and you need to start writing. And if you have challenges if you're having a writer's block, it's not necessary to start from the beginning. You can start from any other section, at least from chapter 1 to chapter 3. You can jump from within these areas in order to get you started. So, let's continue. In terms of your writing, you must take note of certain issues that are general. But remember, what I'm presenting here may also differ from field to field, but this is like a general rule to ensure that you have a very clear and readable style within your scientific write-up. So, what are those things you need to take cognizance of? Short, clear phrases. I usually say no long thing. You don't have to, once your sentence is going to like 3 or 4 lines, then it's too long. Yeah, at times 3 is alright if it's properly punctuated, but most of the time, the most efficient thing to do is to have short, simple sentences. Okay? Try to write in clear, short phrases. Okay? Combination of short phrases that is easy to read. Don't use first person to describe your action. I, we. It's usually not appropriate. She, he. Don't use them. Most journals and most scientific write-up now are advocating for gender neutral language. You don't know if they maybe sometimes you know that the author is a male or a female, but it's not necessary for you to say he affirmed, he opined. No, just the author or something like that. Try and find a gender neutral language to use in your write-up. Active form of speech, in the sense that you say what was done. The solution was placed in a beaker. The copies of questionnaire were administered. Okay? You say your language must be in active form of speech. Instead of the beaker was filled with a solution. No, that is not active. It's a passive language. So you must learn to use active language. Passive language is not clear and readable. Okay? When reporting, use past tense. So which means once you get to your chapter 3, when you are not writing a proposal, when you are writing your final project report or thesis, your chapter 3, your chapter 4, you are now reporting what has been done. So you must use past tense. When you are writing proposal, you are supposed to use future tense. So take note of this. When you are still proposing, you are using future tense. When you are writing the final report, you must use past tense. Okay? However, for example, when you are presenting tables and figures, you can use present tense. Figure 1 shows that so is related to so, or figure 1 shows that there is a positive, an increasing trend, a growing trend of so over time. So you are using present tense when you are presenting data, table, figures, chart, illustration. But if it is a picture of something that happened, yeah, you might have to use uh, uh, tact in how you present it. If it's a picture of what happened during your field work, yes, you are going to use past tense or showing, for example, uh, plate 1, uh, artisanal refiner with their equipment. Okay, so you have to find a way to present your data, either illustrations, pictures, or figures and charts in the appropriate way. Language is very important when you are presenting your work. Going back to sentences again, simple and short sentences are very important. Also, try to vary the structure and the length. You don't want to have a lot of tiny sentences. You can vary it sometimes, some long sentences, but remember, not overly long sentences. They must be simple and short, but not too short that it looks like you are writing a poem, you know. So try and vary, because when you vary the structure and the length of the sentences, it also creates a kind of good read, a kind of sense of good read for people, because now it's not always just short sentences, but a mixture of short, medium, and not too long. Find a balance, because remember, you are not writing only for yourself, you are writing for other people to read. So if it is not good to read, there is a tendency for people not to judge your work to be good enough. Learn also how to use punctuation appropriately. If things get too long, if your sentences get too long, find a way to break them down into smaller bits so that it becomes easy for people to comprehend what you are writing. Paragraphs as well, they should be short, but not too short. But they must carry just one line of thought. A particular issue or a particular concept or a particular idea that you are trying to describe must be captured in one paragraph. Don't model several ideas or concepts together within one paragraph. One paragraph, one line of thought. If you are talking about let's say the finding of a particular school of thought in relation to your big idea, so let's say you started that so author in 2020 reported that A is positively related to B, full stop. This finding was also corroborated by so in 2020 and 20 and another author in 20 whatever. Therefore, so means that these A and B are associated within so environment. You have presented this idea from those authors. If you can now follow that with another paragraph that discusses counter ideas or other kind of relationship for A and B that have been observed in literature. But you remember that the first paragraph captures those who are saying this is the way the relationship is. The second paragraph following that present findings that have shown that the relationship is not also like that. Then the next paragraph will now present why the difference in findings, okay, between those who said it's like this and those who, so your write up in that way gives a kind of sequence that is easy for somebody to follow. So try and write in such a way that you are presenting the story that is convincing and it's logical to follow. Use of repetitive keywords or linking phrase to connect sentence is very important. On the other hand, however, consequently, in essence, those kind of words help you to link sentences together. So use them when you have paragraphs and you want to link sentences within the paragraph. It is good to use this kind of phrases to link them. So learn how to use this kind of linking phrases or keywords. The first sentence in a paragraph introduces the topic of the paragraph. Then you move on to explain and you move on to give examples. So if you are presenting a particular idea in a paragraph, remember, one paragraph, one line of thought. Start by presenting the topic, introduce it, explain it, illustrate it. That is a very logical way to present a topic as you are flowing through it within a paragraph. Then you can move to another paragraph, present a new idea, a topic within your broad work, explain it, introduce it, explain it, illustrate it. It makes your writing very fantastic to read. Now, we have been talking about writing. It is very important that you take plagiarism and scientific misconduct very, very seriously, because it's been something that has been plaguing the scientific world now, because now we have internet that makes it easy for people to just copy and paste other people's work without actually acknowledging them. So what do we mean by plagiarism? Copying other people's work or idea without proper attribution and presenting such as your own work. That is plagiarism. Okay? You are copying other people's work or idea without giving them proper attribution, and you are presenting that work as your own work. That is plagiarism, and is an example of academic misconduct. So remember, do not just literally copy any phrase or from a source. You should paraphrase it. Even if you copy it from source and you are not quoting them, and you now put their name at the end, you are still plagiarizing. Okay? A quote is different from a paraphrase. Okay? You paraphrase and you put proper attribution. Okay? It is very important, because if for example, at the university you must submit your work for plagiarism test, and if you are found wanting, you are not going to be given a second chance. Once your work shows that you have heavily plagiarized, you will be facing the disciplinary committee. So you do not want to get yourself into that. So get it into your system now that you learn how to read and understand people's work. When you read, you paraphrase what you have read and you give proper attribution. We will go through some ideas of how to paraphrase. How do you do it in subsequent presentations? Scientific misconduct, I mentioned that plagiarism is an example of academic misconduct. We also have what we call scientific misconduct. That is intentional or gross negligence leading to fabrication of outcomes or reports, or giving false credit to a scientist, and data manipulation and fabrication. When you play around with the data and you report falsely, or you give false credit to a particular scientists. So when you have read something and you don't remember where you read it, and you know that it is not your own idea, and you now put a wrong citation there, that is a scientific misconduct, because you are giving false credit to a scientist that is not you. So you are lying. Or you collected data from 20 people and then you said it's 200 people, 200 respondents. That is a lie. You are fabricating the data. So you now duplicate the data several times, or you find a way to manipulate it to make it look like as if you have 200 respondents. That is scientific misconduct. Do your work appropriately in an honest way, because other people are going to read your work and going to be assuming that you have done a proper work, and they will be citing your work. Imagine if medical research are done in a very bad way, such that they have falsified the evidence and the data. Then your doctors will be using false and fabricated data and reports and findings to treat you. So it is very important. Have that at the back of your mind. Imagine if this manipulation that you are thinking of or you want to do, if it is the way that medical research are also done, will you be happy if your doctor is treating you based on very false and manipulated research? So it is very important to do your work appropriately. Take note. You should write in your own word and refer adequately to the source. That is what I mean by you need to paraphrase. Do not copy entire phrase or paragraph from an existing text. Do not do it. There is no reason to do it. Read, understand, paraphrase, and cite. Read, paraphrase, cite the author. It is very, very important. That is what I want to tell you about plagiarism. I will go through another part where I will show you some ways by which you can write your work appropriately. Now, what is the structure and the content that you need to look at? We have talked about the research process before, but I'm just presenting it to you again, the illustration. You start with the research idea, or you have read somebody's conclusion, it gave you an idea, you do your literature review, you formulate a theoretical, you go to the theoretical plane. Remember, scientific process has two planes, the theoretical plane and the empirical plane. So you go to the theoretical formulation of the research problem, you move on to empirical research, where you kind of operationalize what you need to do. You design the research, you go out and collect data, you analyze the data, you answer the research questions, you interpret the data, the theoretical interpretation of the result, you compare with the earlier work. That comparison is what we call discussion. Okay? So in your work, when you say result and discussion, there's the theoretical interpretation of the result is the result, where you explain the result. Then the comparison with earlier research, that is the part where we say discussion. After that, you make conclusion, and the whole process starts all over. Okay? So scientific method, there's the research process, and there's also the need for you to communicate your research finding with people in the field or beyond the field. People need to know your finding, because that will inform decision, and it can also feed into new research. Since you remember, you also did some literature review, so you are basing your own work on what other people have done. So by presenting your work, by writing it up and publishing it or submitting it as a thesis or whatever, you are adding to the scientific body of knowledge. So it is not right when you are writing in your chapter 1 that one of the objective of the work is to contribute to body of knowledge. You must contribute to it. Is inherent in any scientific work that you must contribute to the body of knowledge. So the structure that we usually use is, you have introduction, that is the IMRAD structure now. Introduction, methods, result, and discussion. Okay, I will elaborate on this. Your introduction will have the part of why. Why are you doing this? Why is this necessary? In between introduction and method, you have the review, the literature review. Okay, so from literature review, you should start getting an idea of how are you going to do the work. That is where the method comes in. And then you have the result, which is presenting what you have found out after you have collected the data and you have analyzed it. What were your findings? Then the discussion goes on to say, how does this sit in the body of literature? How are your findings compared to what has been found in literature? Then you finish it up with the conclusion. Okay, so remember, you must have an outcome. You must present the outcome of your research. Okay, and one of the structure you could follow is the IMRAD structure. Okay, it's a very simplified form of scientific reporting, and it is widely used because it contains all the necessary information for assessing the quality of your work. If I look at your introduction, I should be able to get an idea of why you're doing your work. I look at your method, I can be able to see whether you have adopted the correct method. If I look at your result, I will see whether the result is actually tallying with what is expected. Not necessarily that I'm expecting you to have this particular result, but when I look at the method and I look at the result, there should be a way to see whether things are actually correctly done. Then from the result, now you have presented the result. I should be able to judge whether the result is fitting well with what you are discussing, because you must discuss your findings and situate it in the existing literature. So the IMRAD structure is useful for report, for thesis, for papers, academic journal publication. So, but you should also remember that there are always going to be deviations in the way people structure their work depending on the field. So you should always seek appropriate advice on how or what is adopted within your own area. But this gives a very simplified structure of how to do scientific reporting. So let's start with the introduction. What are the content of introduction? This is where you announce your research work. Before we go on, I think we'll stop here and we'll continue from here in the next session.